appropriate.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Mrs. Pinky Thoughts. I am your host, Mrs. Pinky, and again, I'm going to start today off with our very special guest. We have Roderick Threats. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I am amazing. Thank you. That is so awesome. Before we get right into it, I would like to remind everybody to please like and subscribe to my channel so we can make sure that you are caught up on the latest that I am posting. And also make sure that you hit that notification bell so you are available when I'm posting a new episode. At the top of your screen, you should see a donation tab if you can spare some change for your little girl. We have my Cash App on the top and we have my PayPal on the other side. And always available at the bottom is all of my social media links, especially consciousconservativemedia.net, which you can join now for free. Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about patriotism and the 1A. We got a lot of kind of patriotic things going on, and our guy Roderick already showed me his flag up in there, and we was just messing around. I was trying to show him that we weren't triggered by the United States flag. And hi, everybody that's in the audience that's checking us out today. Oh, he got his shades on, too. See, we black and we proud, but we also American and proud, too. You can do both over here with us. So how are you doing today, sir? How's everything going?
I'm doing this fantabulous. It's been a blessed month so far. Let's just hope the other half is just as blessed as the first half. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Today's topic, we're talking a little bit about the First Amendment. We're not going to get too deep into it, but we're talking about patriotism. Have you been checking out and noticing what was going on down with our friends and family down in Cuba and what's going on with them?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I'm only 77 miles from Miami, so
Mm-hmm.
I've made a lot of friends with the Hispanic community, particularly the Cuban community down there, and you know what's been going on, etc. And it's whew, there's some heat down there, boy. There's some heat. They are bringing the heats.
You love how you're not seeing them waving the Cuban flag. They got the old glory out there. How you feel about that?
Hey, you know what? The same thing with Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong did the same thing. They had old glory out there. It just goes to show, the anti-American hypocrites we have in our country, that even though they tried to put America in a bad light, people on the outside looking in are like, no, 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 y'all got this twisted. We did this it right here. This is the symbolism for freedom that we know. It's the only one we know. We don't see them flying the Chilean flag or the Chinese flag or the Angolan flag. We see them walking around with Old Glory.
They saying you have you're hard to hear a little bit.
Okay, I'll pull up my studio mic. I'll pull up my
All
studio
right,
mic real
thanks,
quick.
Tiff. Thank you for letting us know. Because we got to get into this, and I want to make sure everybody can hear what you're saying, because this is a good time to be an American.
Hold on. How's that, y'all? Is that legit?
I can hear you. You guys hear in the comment section? I think you're good to go.
All right, let's get it.
Okay, so like we were talking about the American symbol being this symbol, what do you think the disconnect is now with when you see protesting in America and people see those images? You don't see the American flag within our Black Lives Matter protests or anti-this protest or that in America on our soil, but you see it in foreign lands that don't have what they think or what they believe in their country, but they're flying our flag. Why do you think that has happened, or what has happened with that?
Well, in America particularly, right, we're spoiled. We are very, very, very spoiled, right? We don't, America is one of the most isolated countries in the world. So I can say 90% of Americans has never traveled outside of the borders of the United States to see what's going on in other countries, to understand what's going on. So they don't know what it is to see oppression, from in its rawest form or its truest form. Unlike people in Europe, I mean, literally, Europe is literally almost the size of Texas, Texas and a half. So it's very easy to drive from Spain to Germany in a day. You know what I mean? And you go through all these different countries and you see the different things that are going on, and they're so close together, right? So the people in Europe that are pro liberty, right? They're a very small minority in their countries for in that regard, and they respect our flag. The folks, that are revolting right now in their countries holding up the flag, they understand they are a small minority, and those of us that are pro liberty in the United States are their allies because we have done it best. We have done it better than any other country in the world. Right, that's that American exceptionalism. Right, the other big disconnect with people in the United States when it comes to freedom is these people do not know what oppression is. They do not know what it took to gain the freedoms that we have. Outside the military presence, all of that, the people in this country that suffered for us to get to this point, and people in this country want to just toss it all the way because of what they're being spoon-fed by XYZ media outlet or XYZ pundit or whomever. So for me personally, that's what I see, along with a little bit of postmodernism sprinkled around in there. But that's another discussion.
Yeah, so we see that these people are going through it and they are fighting back and they're taking the American spirit. And I'm always telling people that that's the spirit that should always represent the flag. We see people are so enamored with protecting the actual clause, the actual flag itself, but we should be living up to the flag. How do you think, people have gotten into this mode that when we have problems with America, we protest our symbols. Like we have Gwen Berry, who was an Olympic athlete, and she had a problem with the national anthem. Or we have Kaepernick kneeling to the flag. Why do you think that that's their answer for when they have grievances to air them out instead of being more proud of America that we can change things?
The short answer
Yes.
is education.
Okay.
The long answer would be the generational thought process that's been passed down, since the 1850s, right? About America is, is not living up to what it stands for, and that's been passed down, especially in the black community in particular. It's been passed down as such as, white people represent America, white people oppressed black folks, so that flag does not pertain to you, even though you are an American national. That flag does not pertain to you, and they don't understand the value in that. And this is why we're here today, people still thinking they are being oppressed by an immutable characteristic that is represented by that flag. As we have seen, they try to tailor white supremacy to the American flag that's behind me, right? Mm-hmm. When a lot of us that put on a uniform, I know you as military, I was foreign service, understands what that represents around the world and the beacon of hope it represents to people. And being black in this country and having to wear a uniform and sworn to that oath of the Constitution, that flag hits different. And we try to get folks to understand that, yeah, we have these issues, but at the same time, like, we are the freest we have been in forever. And now we want to take that back, and we want to desecrate the sky cloth because we don't understand how to redress government with our grievances.
And do you think that because we don't know how to redress government, that's where we coming in with the issue as far as patriotism and those symbols? Like we have this dichotomy with what happened on January 6th in the election, which was it's called an insurrection by some, it's called a riot by others, but there were American flags there. But then when you talk about the riots that happened in 2020, there were more, they created their own flags. There were no American flags. So how do you see people who don't know how to address the grievances? What do you think about that?
Again, it kind of goes back to the education piece of it, and and understanding, again, what that flag means. The other part of that is, God, there's so many veins to that, but I'm try to stay on a kind of a simple one. The one thing that we see is that our education system has failed to teach people the symbolism of that flag. What I mean by that is they open a history book, right? And everything they see is slavery, 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 Civil War. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln did a thing, and then 1964. This is what they see. So these people that were protesting in the streets in 2020, that's all they know. That's all they understand. They don't understand the excellence that happened in those 94 years that they're claiming, that they're omitting, right? That where we made headway and then again was slapped down, and then we made more headway and got the Civil Rights Act, right? So again, for me, it's the education on just the American history as a whole, not just the whitewash side or the blackwash side. It's all of it together, because there are too many moving parts. And when folks start understanding that, we will see more people flying the flag. But what's funny about that, right, is in the beginning when I mentioned that they've attributed the flag to white supremacy, right? After Biden was inaugurated, all the Biden Harris supporters, oh, I can be a patriot again. I can fly my flag. What? How does that make sense? To me, that does not make sense. You've been an American those 4 years under Donald Trump. You've been an American the whole time. But now you feel as you can fly the flag because you are a patriot. And that word in itself is been broken down into so many ambiguous definitions. We don't know which one, that people don't know which one is actually which. And patriot can be racist or it can be American. And people are, it's that definition for me, but not for thee, right? Kind of thing, right? So,
I mean, I alluded to like when people like their sports teams, and they ride them when they up the top, but then when they're sucking and they're trash, they like, oh, I don't really mess with them. But they ride with their team. So since they feel like they're elect person that they voted for won, then they was like, oh, I feel like I can be an American again. And being American is supposed to be the good, bad, and the ugly when your side wins or your side loses or country goes to war and invades the country or whatever. You are an American regardless. And it's what we built within Americanism, that we address problems and we address issues. And that's why I bring up, January 6th, because those people thought that they was going there to address the issue. And that's why I bring up the George Floyd. They think that they're addressing the issue, even though it's two sides of the political spectrum. So we lost the ability to actually still be, I'm an American, I'm proud, but also I'm upset with America at the same time. So we lost that with some of the issues going on. Can you go over, I know this is going to be long, but I want to see if you can break it down a little bit of how the founders thought that the freedom of speech, having that as something guaranteed, the right to protest, the right to stand up for your grievance, how important that was to add into the Constitution and to put it first. I know the First Amendment is different parts, but how important it was to put protesting and your right to do so in the First Amendment.
Whew.
Because people are always talking about they have that right, Nate. So why would they create a new government? So they're going to give the new citizens of this new country a right to protest them, essentially.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, if we remember the very, very, very first protest in America, well, in America, not the United States, in America was December 16th, 1773, Boston Tea Party, right?
Yes.
That was the very first protest in America, and it was basically, it was against taxes and the monopoly and tax exemption by the British. I think it's the British East Indian Company. I think they were called. But I know the date, but all that good stuff, and when everything that went happen. With that, there was also some. It was. I think if I remember correctly, it was James Madison that would go back and forth to England to represent the colonies in Parliament, and they started noticing that they were not being heard. And this is leading up to the Boston Tea Party. We're talking 1769, 1770, 71 area. And they found, they was like, we're tired. We're not being heard, right? We're trying to redress government as the king said they could, and they were not being heard. So Boston Tea Party happened, and then obviously the Treaty of Paris happened, and then the Constitution. Leading up to the Constitution in the Federalist number 7, I think it's number 7, where Thomas Jefferson is talking about free speech and the importance of being able to tell government that it's important to hear you got to hear and understand the people where they're coming from, because man is immoral, right? And with that, some people will be, from different walks of life. So we can't, we all will have our issue with the government, and that should be able to be presented to create a more perfect union. That was one of the biggest things I took away from reading everything free speech related to the founders, and even during the time the United States was America at that time, because it was very important that all voices be heard and and addressed if appropriate at different periods of time throughout their history becoming the United States.
So being a patriot in the country and being, loyal to America, protesting is a part of that. And that's guaranteed in the 1A. Can you break it down more of how did the 1A protesting evolve from just, marching and symbolism to being like burning a flag and burning draft cards? How did it evolve from just written and spoken speech to demonstrations and things like that?
Ooh, well, you had many different types of mini rebellions, right? One of the biggest ones that we had after in the United States of America, and they don't, it's omitted, but the War of 1812 was one of those, right? Because the Gullah Geechee people actually sided with the British in 1812 during the War of 1812, because they wanted freedom, right? And they kept basically addressing the government, saying, "Hey, they did their thing, and they were not being heard." So the War of 1812 happened, and the Gullah Geechee sided with the British in that fight, even though they did lose, obviously. But we've gone from that to, if we come forward a little bit, to the Wilmington insurrection of 1898, and that protest, right, was basically against black legislators in the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, which ended up running all the black legislators out of town and killing 30 to 50 black folks and like 10 or 15 white folks during the midst of all of that, because they were tired on how black folks was governing, right? I mean, obviously that's a whole nother story within itself that leads up through the Lily White movement, but we'll digress from that. But then, we have the burning of buildings during this time, right? Now is one of the first true showing events besides the Capitol being burned. That's a little different. That was a little different type of I was a different type of protest. It's a protest. It wasn't. There was a reason that was burned, but the Wilmington Insurrection in 1898 was the first true protest against government in this country. Now, there was a court case just soon after that. It was, God, I can't think of the name of the court case now, that deemed the burning of the flag was political speech. I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but then we got to that point because, again, the flag is not one protected by the Constitution, right? So anything of any symbolism to America is just that. It's a symbol. Now, this obviously got the goat of a lot of people that served under the flag and look at that flag as liberty, freedom, and justice. But at the end of it, at the end of the whole thing, is just that thing behind me is just a piece of cloth, right? Being an American is a mentality, right? It's a mentality and a personality that we carry with us. So you can burn that flag all day. That flag is ingrained and burned into my brain. It flows through my blood. You can't get rid of that, right? So the burning of symbolisms of America, yeah, it upsets people, but at the same time, right, we have to take our feelings out of that a second and say, hey, that's a piece of material that can be replaced, but I am an American. I am because of that piece of cloth behind me, and I will never deny that. So you can do all the burning you want. I'll make more. You know what I mean? I'll buy more, etc., etc. But then there was a period in time during the Vietnam War where it was very prevalent, where they were burning the American flag to protest the war. Well, I won't say war, the Vietnam conflict. It wasn't a war because we weren't supposed to be in the middle of it in the first place. But, and that's, and I think that's carried down from there ideologically. It's carried down from those hippies, those those baby boomers that did that, and now we're at the point where it's socially acceptable in a lot of circles to burn the United States flag in the name of redressing the government, but not actually addressing the issue. You're just burning a piece of cloth to get attention, but you're not doing anything on the back end to back up why you're burning that flag.
Yes, they're not really showing up, to these meetings, going to the legislative offices and everything. So we're talking here today about patriotism and the American flag, and we're trying to basically balance the two. Like, we're Black, we're veterans, we're conservatives, but we see people like, Olympic athletes or media and everything, and it seems like they're disparaging our nation that we all share. But then you turn around and you see Cubans and you see Chinese and you see when every oppressed people around the world today are oppressed, they are seeing our flag as a symbol of hope. They seeing our flag as something to aspire to. Do you think that that's because we haven't suffered the same way? Because we do have problems here. So
we do have problems, but I think a lot of it is, and I've been saying this for a while, but I haven't said it out loud. So you're going to be the first to actually hear that thought from me. Okay. Americans are not ready to get uncomfortable. They're not ready to get uncomfortable with the realities that are existing in this country. The left has its whole spiel about America and to deny what the right is saying, and the right does the exact same thing. The left and the right are not ready to get uncomfortable about what's going on in America, right? Especially, and I hate to bring up the dreaded four-letter word, but I got to, when it comes, and it's not really a four-letter word, it's 11-letter word, ethnicity in this country, right? Because, Black folks on the left, they're like, oh, there's all this systemic racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the folks on the right are like, well, no, not really, maybe a little bit. And then you have the the white folks on the right that deny systemic racism does not exist. And then when black folks on the right pointed out to them, like, yeah, there's a little bit, see, this is what's going on here, then that is still denied. So Americans are not ready to get uncomfortable with that conversation on what's exactly is happening and how do we fix that problem. Denying the problem doesn't fix the problem. It just keeps getting tuckered away. You know, the whole bit. Same conversation with capitalism, right? The left says capitalism is destroying America, this, that, and the third. And the right is like, oh, hey, capitalism is great. But what both sides have failed to realize is that crony capitalism is the root of all of our problems. And it's the crony capitalism coming out of our government that is creating this problem. By creating winners and losers, using crony capitalism and funneling that money to welfare programs, social programs, is one of the destructions of this country. And nobody wants to recognize that. They don't want to get uncomfortable and out of their shell to have this conversation. And in defense of the right, they don't want to get called bigots and racist all the darn time. It gets tiresome. I see it on social media. It gets tiresome. You know, and the black folks on the right getting hollered, called coons. You're cooning up for the white conservatives and the Samboing up. And I'm like, and this is why we could never get there, because everybody now is really stuck in their corner. And when they come out, they're made overwhelmingly so uncomfortable with the conversation where they just digress and deny everything that's happening, put their head in the sand. So America needs to get uncomfortable to understand what freedoms and liberties we do have, why they still exist.
Like I have experience overseas. I'm a 2-time combat vet in Iraq, and I seen what those people deal with every day. Just their living conditions, not even just the war zone ties to it. Just like where they go to school, or they didn't have schools. We actually helped them build a school, and just the things that we take for granted here. What do you think we could do as in the conscious conservative movement or in any movement on either side to actually show Americans what is going on? Because we have a media today that is actually feeding into that. Like we have the media right now talking about Cubans just need vaccines when people have families down there that's telling them something different. What do you think we should do, and how can we reach the American people to show them that this is really what's going on and these are the conversations we need to have so we can move forward?
This is a hard one because so many people are entrenched on their side of the mainstream media spectrum that it's almost like they've drinking the poison water, right? When it comes to all this, right? I mean, let's take the Cuban thing for example, right? The bottom line of that conversation is the communist government and the socialized medicine. That's the overarching conversation that should be being had. But yet, we still have, again, right, folks on the left talking about, well, if it wasn't for the embargo and this, that, and I'm like, yeah, the embargo, but there is well over 60 other countries in the world they can trade with. China is their biggest trade partner. Germany is second. The embargo from us means nothing compared to the other countries in the world. And then, again, folks on the other side deny the embargo exists. The Bay of Pigs actually happened. Whole 9 yards. In order to get people, again, going back to being uncomfortable, right? They got to realize the realities that, you know, both sides, we're being oppressed by the government through media. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, censoring information, omission of information is a form of oppression. I mean, that's how I look at it, right? Because you're not telling us the whole truth to allow us to make a conscious decision. You want to pigeonhole us into a certain way of thinking. And that is not their role, propaganda, right? We need to sit down, people that are that are willing to have that conversation and leave everyone else behind and let them catch up. I mean, I'm of the thought that if these people are so far entrenched on their sides, they're not going to come out and believe as a collective what they believe, then they need to be left behind while we keep putting out the facts of the matter. One way or another, they will either come to the realization of what they've been told is a lie, or the people that come together have these discussions and put out the honest information is going to lead the way and lead the nation.
Awesome, that's true. People are so entrenched on their hyper-partisan teams and just their hyper focus on certain things that they're not seeing the grand picture of everything. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that the media, and we're both in media, I'm doing a podcast and you have your podcast, do you think the media has a more important role of leading the charge with this?
Oh yeah, yes they do. They do 100%. But again, what is it? What does it all come down to, right? What does it all come down to? Crony capitalism, right? That money. They get money for those clicks. They get money for that viewership, right? Which goes back to make me think. Sidebar conversation. If Donald Trump bolstered the mainstream media's revenue, and we're talking upwards of $600 billion during his presidency, why would you fight to get rid of him? No one will ever be able to answer that question.
I don't think they truly got like rid of him. I
Mm-hmm.
saw a news story today where Rachel Maddow, excuse me, she was
Mm-hmm.
talking about Trump again, and I keep thinking to myself, he's not the president. He's literally, I mean, yeah, he's doing stuff behind the scenes. He's hosting rallies. He's throwing out letters here and there, but technically, y'all giving him still a voice because y'all are
Mm-hmm.
talking about him. Y'all still
Mm-hmm.
talking about January 6th, which I can understand
Mm-hmm.
y'all talking about that because they're doing the commission and everything, but y'all still bringing him up and bringing him into the lexicon because you realize he's still a part of the Republican Party because he spoke at CPAC. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
y'all are giving him a platform, so are y'all really ready to get rid of him, or y'all need this boogeyman
Mm-hmm.
and incarnate to fight against? Because maybe we don't have the problems that the socialists are fighting down, or the communists are fighting down in Cuba.
Right. That's exactly correct, right? And you know that. And see, with that, I'm gonna get back. Let's get back on. I'm gonna get back on track here. I just had to throw that out there real quick because to
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm trying to figure out. It doesn't make any sense. But the media, I think they're too far gone to lead the charge. I think they're too far gone, and they're too entrenched on their bias and the way they try to treat independent journalists and use the enforcement arm of the state to do it. I mean, censorship, right? I mean, heck, they got Andy No living in Europe right now because of what the media is doing to slander him and call him all types of what this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? And that in itself should tell you how entrenched the media is to really suppress other people's opinions and truths on the things that are happening in the United States. So I mean, really, we need to just wash the media. Period. We just need to wash them out, and all the independent media folks like me, you, and others need to start just putting it out there like it is. No, no filter, no nothing, and get people uncomfortable with the truth. That's really the only way, to say, besides coming together, is to get people to actually wake up. And if they run because they're uncomfortable, then those aren't the people we can help at this point. The people that stay around because it's uncomfortable and they don't agree with you, but they listen to you, those are the ones we have to keep evangelizing to and doing this for. So that light bulb turns on, and then they start going down, rabbit holes and looking at different things. And so, yeah, again, the media, they're not going to be any help. They're not going to be any help in this at all.
We had President Biden come out today. He was speaking on voting rights and the Texas law and legislation that was coming out. Do you think that that's what plays a part into people's patriotism or how they feel about speech and everything? Is how the public are being gaslighted and talked to by our own president of the United States? Now, we say that Trump was attacking the media when he was calling people fake news and when he was talking about Kaepernick and he was protesting. So, do you see the same things coming from out of this administration when it comes to our rights and him talking to half the country a certain way as opposed to how he talks to his base?
Ooh. I really think that January 6th is their tackling fuel, right? Like the water boy, right? That's their tackling fuel to broad brush everything right wing related. The voting rights bit, right? Biden went to Michigan, he went to Pennsylvania, right? Talking
Mm-hmm.
about the whole voting rights issue. You had Texas Democrats that got jumped on an airplane, went to DC to help promote HR 1, which, sorry, that's dead in the water. But and they're using they use this. He's using this gaslight to, one, ignite his base, and then also ignite the neocons, or the progressive right, I should say, right? To his message. And personally, it's very damaging for him for him to be doing this as the president of the United States. I mean, granted, Trump said some things that we didn't like, and we kind of cringed, like, "Ooh, you shouldn't say that, bro. No." But then we don't see the other side holding him just as accountable for doing the exact same thing our previous president did. So really, for me, it really all boils down to how much are you willing to take from this guy before you realize that this guy is the king statist. And he's showing you in every single move that he makes that he doesn't care. He's got you hook, line, and sinker. And he's going to talk about snatching your voting rights while he's snatching all other rights from you from underneath your nose. I'm going to leave that there because I can talk about that for a hot minute.
Well, back to we're talking about patriotism and the 1A, and I was just interested in how it just looks so different when Americans protest versus when we have had Antifa protesting in Portland,
Mm-hmm.
other places across the country, and it's just so different that people who are not Americans can understand at least what our symbol is supposed to mean, or that's what it means to them, versus people
Right.
right here. And we're not even talking about whether or not their grievances are right. We're not even debating whether or not they actually have the right to
Right.
that. We're just saying, okay, you have a grievance. Why are you burning the flag for your grievance? Or why are you
Mm-hmm.
not looking to the flag to solve your issues instead of away from the flag, or we got to do away with the flag and all of that. And
Right.
that was the point of this episode of Mrs. Pinky Thoughts. And I was trying to get see if you could lead us through the history of it. And I think you touched on a little bit of it, how it's taught to people about how the flag and what it represents. What do you think we can do to get that back? Do you think there's some kind of action and some kind of teaching we can do?
The one teaching we could do is literally civics. Even on the littlest level, civics, right? Because at the end of the day, every protest except for the Boston Tea Party, right, was to address something that was happening locally. Wasn't a national thing, it was a local thing, right? We think about, right, in what was it, 1913, Let me think the exact date. March 3rd, 1913, the women's suffrage parade, right? That was started on a local level, right? And it promulgated its way up to Woodrow Wilson's inauguration, right? Where they were out there, kind of like the March for Life was, at Trump's inauguration initially, and then we had, August 28th, 1963. Yeah, 1963. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. We had that. A lot of these things. Again, I ain't gonna go through all of them because there's a myriad of them. They all started local because people had an agreement, right? Regardless of your ethnicity, people were in agreement. Hey, this is messed up. We need to go address our local government with this issue. When it didn't get addressed there, it went to state. When it went to state wasn't addressed, they took it straight to the square. They took it straight to the square and was like, we're here. We did this, and this. And for Americans to come together on this, on just, I don't care if they're left, right, up or down, right? To understand the basics of civics and the First Amendment, we can get back there. We can get back there. I mean, these protests, they're no longer, I would say they're no longer like, they're not racial, right? They're not ethnic protest. They're ideological protest, right? Which makes it a little bit more dangerous, right? Because now we're coming into the realm where people, well, let's just call it what it is, statism, right? They want to push their ideology into government to push their beliefs on everyone else. And the right does the exact same thing. It's that combat mode, right? When these people they're not understanding on a basic level, y'all have the same enemy, and it's government. So why do you have to push your ideology through this? Once we can educate people and get them there, the house of cards falls. It will fall every single time. I mean, we've seen socialist and communist regimes fall. The USSR being the latest, the biggest and latest in the 90s, completely fell because people got tired and understood, wait a minute, we all have this common enemy, and it's Russia. What are we doing? And they started doing their own little thing and started protesting, right? And addressing their government. Oh, USSR don't want to let us go? Well, guess what? We're going to make the break. We're out. Same thing can be done right here. Same thing can be done right here, but it's just getting people on board in that mindset to do that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are tired of it. I mean, sometimes even I get weary of so much going on, and it's exhausting. And I think that's part of the narrative. They want you to be weary, and we have to remember to take it back a local level.
Mm-hmm.
Like one that came to my mind when you were talking was police reform. A lot of people want to address what's going on, but a lot of the police is local. Biden really don't control the police in different areas. That's your mayor, that's your police department, and that's your city council that's doing that. So why do you think that so many people are like, even those Texas, like you were talking about those Texas Democrats, they ran to DC. I'm like, no, you are supposed to be the government of the state of Texas. You're going to the federal government to solve your problems. Why aren't you working with the Republicans in your state? Even if you believe that they're wrong, then that means you're not convincing the constituents who are voting for more Republicans. And so if we have politicians doing that, how are the citizens going to understand what their role is?
Right. I mean, again, that goes back again to the whole teaching of civics and understanding what is really important, right? As you have talked about it a lot on social media, what have you. Local, everything is local. Your grievances are always local. It's never federal. Very rarely is it state. It's all local. All of it. Down to the pencil sharpener. It's local. The pencil sharpener is even local. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we have to, again, like I said, we have to continue to try to push and educate local, and just drill it as much as, you know what I mean? And for conservatives, right, especially, right? Now, I want to leave the left out of the conversation a second, right? Even for conservatives, right? The 3 pillars of conservatism, as I call it, right? Individual, family, and community. There was a period in time where conservatives believed all 3. Now, they forgot the third one, community. They're worried about their individuality and their family, but not participating in the community. And this is where the left comes in and gets it right. They don't care about the individual. They don't care about the family unit, right, per se. I'm saying that loosely, right? They go after the community. That's why you have big, huge swaths of blue districts, blue counties. You know, if you look locally on your election maps, you'll see that. You will literally see that. You will see, okay, these 3 whole precincts are all blue. Why? Because they have, you know, the Democrats have gone in and used their community machine to churn votes. Conservatives and Republicans don't do that. They're like, we're good in our own strongholds. We're good. We're good in our strongholds. We don't want to get uncomfortable by going down to the hood or going down into a Democrat-ran area, right? But you know what's unusual, though, Miss Pinky? Is that at one point in time, and I think some of that mentality comes from the old Republican mentality, because we have to admit the old Republicans were the country club party, right? We have to admit that 100%. Everybody's got that bread and they, you know, doing their thing. But that ideological shift over the last 20 years has switched, right? The Democrats are all they control all the money, and the Republicans are going back to their foundation, right? The working man, the everyday American.
Yes.
Right? And again, the Democrats are about the elite. And we've seen that with Sheldon Whitehouse. We've seen that just happened, right? And big tech, right? All that. That's all them. That is all them. Period. Right? So we have to the conservatives have to get back to community. And right now is that perfect opportunity for them to get back into the community and evangelize conservative values, because most people have conservative values. It's how you send out the messaging. It's the messaging that is very important. And conservatives and Republicans historically has had bad messaging. We all can admit this. It's getting a little bit better. Little bit. I give them some credit. A little bit better. But it's got to come full circle. It's got to come full circle before 2022 and 2024. Or we'll be talking about the same thing again. We're talking about here exactly 2 years from now. Same conversation. Nothing's going to change.
Well, at least we're having these conversations because it's uncomfortable on the national level. So somebody got to start talking about it.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes. And
we need to get uncomfortable locally. You know what I mean? We need to shake some, shake some bars and all that good stuff. They can protest in the street because of police reform. Some people can protest in the street for systemic racism. They can, you know what I mean? They can, stand in the streets for, high oppressive taxes in their communities. They can do that. But they won't, because they're taught to pick and choose what's going on.
Awesome. Today's show, we were talking about patriotism and the 1A, and I want to leave it on that note because we could talk all day. But, we definitely could. But I thank you so much for being and joining us on a new episode of Mrs. Pinky Thoughts. I'm your host, Ms. Pinky, and this is my guest today, Roderick Threats. Can you tell them where they can find you at, Rod?
You can find me everywhere on social media, Man of Justice 007. You can find my podcast on all podcast platforms, including Amazon and Pandora, called Southern Liberty. You can check that out. You can find me at bpmg.us. That's my Black Patriot Media group that we got going on. So yeah, you can find me in all those different places at some point in time.
Awesome. I thank you guys in the comments for joining us. And this is a good day for Miss Pinky Thoughts. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Peace, y'all.